Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this, dare I say it, the 9th and final event in the Building People partnership with UK Construction Week, focusing on cultural change. It's been an amazing series of events, and we've heard from so many different audiences, all looking at what is it we can do together collaboratively to make this industry more diverse, more inclusive, more welcoming, more accepting, more inclusive, more efficient, more effective. So today at this session now, we are bringing together the outputs from the previous 8 sessions. The focus is, of course, how do we change the culture of the built environment? And we're presenting back a summary of all the actions and coming up with a plan. So my name is Rebecca Lovelace. I'm the founder, chief dot joiner at Building People. I'm going to provide a very quick introduction to Building People, and then I'll be handing over to Terry Watts and to our panel, and we'll be discussing together the outputs and sharing our thoughts on what we can do together to really bring about change. So just to begin with, we're really keen that you all play a part in what we're doing. So join in, please, help us make some noise. We've listed below our various usernames and handles, and please do use the Q&A function on the Construction Week platform. I'll be looking at my other screen to see what's going on. We want you to share with us your thoughts, your challenges, your suggestions and ideas. Tell us your stories. There's also a Q&A function. So if you'd like to put a question in directly to the panel, please put it in that way. I'll do my quick swing to the right, and then I shall report back and we'll feed that question to the panel. So please do join in. This isn't about us. This is about all of us, about the industry and everybody that makes this industry as amazing as it is. So very briefly, Building People. This is where we began. The designer that created this for us said he wanted to bill extra for A, reading glasses, and B, psychotherapy support, because he struggled with this. He likes nice, clean lines. Don't take it seriously. The point of this diagram is really just to show that the industry is incredibly fragmented, and there is a load of activity going on focuses on diversity inclusion, on skills and careers, and on social value, but none of it is joined up. And because it's not joined up, it's not efficient, and that's therefore costly. And we know as an industry that we really do need more people, and we need people that don't look like the people that make up the majority of our workforce. And we also know that by being more inclusive, we can dramatically increase the social value that we deliver, as well as being more innovative and more effective. So this is where Building People started. Arguably, this slide is relevant going back more than 3 years. And where we are today is the launch of the Building People prototype, which we launched at Construction Week, believe it or not, just on Tuesday. And I'm just going to very, very, very briefly talk you through what that looks like. Because the whole point of this 6-button approach that you can see here is that Building People simply aggregates. So all we're doing is we're bringing together what is already happening and we connect. So we make it easier for people to find what already exists. We are not duplicating effort. We are merely underpinning the websites of others out there to enable more people to find what already exists. So we have 300 plus organisations that provide support with regard to built environment careers. So whether this is job vacancies, internships, apprenticeships, work experience, whether it's mentoring networks or bursaries or courses, it's all the organisations that can help. And then with Designing Buildings Wiki, we've created a people microsite. So please share your content. If you have information, resources, branded content focused on diversity and inclusion, on skills and careers, or on social value, it's open source, open access. So please do add your content. So we're creating one place where all of this sits. And subject to our crowdfunding going well, we're going to be doing research to actually pull together the data so we can easily find out how many people there are doing which roles from which backgrounds in the industry. Ask a person, as you'd imagine, it's very simple. Hey, I'm moving to Birmingham. I've got an interview as a QS. Can you give me some quick tips? It's about how those of us in industry, can share our expertise and knowledge with those who might be in industry already or looking to come in. And learning and events and work opportunities, very much listings of activities, courses, training, but also vacancies, again, from work experience to jobs via apprenticeships, internships and placements. And resources is a repository of content. And we've made these last 4, so Ask a Person to Resources. These are focused on surveying because this is our prototype. And what we're doing is we have underpinned the website of the Chartered Surveyors Training Trust. And therefore it means a user of the CSTT's website can access all of this really easily without the CSTT having to do it themselves. And we're now crowdfunding to take this model so that more organisations, the next one we plan to work with is Diversity Surveyors. It has a fantastic reach into BAME audiences. And we want to replicate this and white label it so the Diversity Surveyors website can provide more for those individuals using the website through one simple underpinning platform. Just as an example, the final 2 points about building people, we have aggregated the directories of those that are doing similar with a specific focus. So Black Professionals in Construction indeed has a supply chain portal of businesses that are owned by BAME individuals. And Stopcox launched yesterday, they've launched it to tradeswomen to register with their National Register of Tradeswomen. So we're helping more people find these other aggregators, these other dot joiners, bringing things together. So the very last piece, just to show you about building people before we hand over to the panel, is we would be nothing, I mean, partly obviously without our founding partners, without our supporters, but we'd be nothing without these communities. And it's these 35 plus organisations that form the Building People network of communities that has meant that we're able to work together to enable organisations such as, let's just pick, Women in BIM. Women in BIM forms one of the members of the women's community, but we have all these communities that we work with to share best practice, to come together, to collaborate, to do more and to do more together. So if you'd like to be involved in building people in any way as a member of the community, by sharing your content, by uploading your information, please do join in. And what I would say, just for the very short term, and I'm just going to close that one down before anything goes horribly wrong. And for the very short term, I am now going to share my screen, or rather stop sharing my screen, so that the panel can all turn their cameras on and say hello. And I'm going to be handing over to Terry Watts, who's going to be chairing this session. But just one final plug, please help me keep my neck muscles working well by looking continuously to my right, because I want to see the chat full of suggestions, ideas and comments. And also I want to see lots of questions coming in that shall feedback. So panel, please do unmute and turn your cameras on, and Terry will introduce you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. Yes, we've come to the end of 9 events this week for Building People. I'm delighted to have such a great panel to help us summarise the activities that we've had, because it's all been about trying to identify culture change. And through each of the events, we've asked the panellists and the contributors to help us identify those barriers to culture change and the thing they would like to see to happen that would make the biggest impact. I've done that from different communities, and I'll be going through that in a few moments. But just first of all, I'd like to introduce the panel, or have them introduce themselves. So I'll go clockwise from where I sit here. So Deidre, would you like to tell us about yourself and where you're from, please?
Hello, Terry, and hello to our listeners. Thank you very much for joining us and joining this great initiative by Building People for Construction Week. I am Deidre, an Afro-Caribbean senior quantity surveyor, and I've worked within the built environment in different roles for over 20 years or so, before finally specializing in cost consultancy. And for many years, I have supported diversity of the industry as a mentor to students, young persons, and ultimately to my peers, as they go through the chartership process with the RICS. I serve as a STEM ambassador, and I use that platform to present careers in the built environment as a viable option to young persons, particularly persons of a BAME background. I welcome the opportunity to join my fellow panelists, and we are certainly very, very enthusiastic and very excited about this prospect and about taking it forward. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, thank you very much. And Gillian from the BRE, number 2.
Hello, yes, thanks Terry, and hello everybody. Very pleased to be here today. I'm Gillian Charlesworth, CEO of the BRE, Building Research Establishment, and I've taken an increasing interest in diversity and inclusion over the last few years, particularly with reference to gender diversity. But of course, all aspects, which I see as a business critical issue for my organisation and for the wider industry. So I'm very pleased to be here today and looking forward to hearing some great ideas about how we can continue with this work to shift culture.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. And I've been delighted as I've been working with the communities through this week that I've been the minority on all the panels. So it's, Robert, you're on my team. So tell us about where you're from, the construction industry hub.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be on this call. So my name is Robert Isles, and I am leading the skills and training work on the Construction Innovation Hub, which is a government-funded project which is part of the Transforming Construction Challenge. And what I'm going to bring to the table today are a couple of things. One, I want to talk a little bit about innovation and its role as a potential enabler to improving diversity and inclusivity in the industry. I also might interject a few things about my own background. I am of European descent who grew up in 1970s England, and I kind of felt it was about time I kind of got into this discussion, as I think I've got some things to say, and I'm really pleased to be part of the conversation, you know, alongside building people. As far as my career, I've done a lot of things in my time. I started life as a physics teacher. Did a PhD in education. I've worked on major projects. Also done a fair bit of time in music as well. And if I was to swing my camera to the other half of the room, you'd see all my guitars lined up on the wall. Nevertheless, I'm really pleased to be part of this discussion.
So if we want a song later on, Robert, we know where to come. So I think I'll keep us Okay, thank you very much. And Anjali, tell us about you.
Hi everyone, my name is Anjali. I work for a family-run carpentry and joinery subcontractor, and I'm a project surveyor there. Kind of fell into this industry more so because it was kind of heritage family. But yeah, I then slowly realized after doing my dissertation research and researching more why people from backgrounds like myself weren't getting into the industry, that I became really passionate about voicing change, not just for our industry, but externally too. So people's perceptions of us kind of change, and parents more than anyone kind of, you know, review us in a different way. So that's my kind of background, and I'm a strong advocate for change. So thank you, and Rebecca, for having me here today.
Our pleasure. Thank you very much. Now, this is a great panel. Thank you very much. Before we look forward, to ask you to give us the answers to how we try and adjust the culture within the sector, I'd like to look back at the 8 sessions which have preceded this one, because we've worked with each of the communities and they've told us what they thought they wanted to do. And this is, Rebecca's told you about the Building People website, and we've got the infrastructure in place now. And I'm the CEO of CSTT, as well as helping Rebecca with Building People. And we are the prototype organisation, and we are, if you look at the CSTT website, you'll see it's a very similar layout to the 6 buttons, and we've used those to try and primarily reach out to young people in our context. So we kind of got the infrastructure. We've got the communities established. We have 35 different organizations, and we'd love more. So if you're part of any one of the diverse, there's hundreds of organizations out there in the built environment, passionate people who want to see the environment prove, or the sector prove for diversity and inclusion. Then if you're one of those, you can be part of that. Don't fully have to wait to be invited. Come and drop us an email and you'll be welcome to come and join those communities. They've started to work together now, and we heard this week from them what the sort of things they would like to see as that will help them break down those barriers. And the other thing that we're doing this week is we need to get some resources to do that, because as we will probably talk about later, there is no one to take this agenda forward as a concerted effort across the whole sector, and it's down to individuals to do their bit, which is of course how it should be, but we can collaboratively work more effectively. And one of the things we're asking you to do, as well as providing your time and your insights and your support, is your money, because we're doing a crowdfunding activity as well, and you can contribute to that. Any amount of contribution from £10 up to tens of thousands would be very welcome. So Phil, you can do that, and Rebecca's given you links for that, and I'm sure we'll not be backward in coming forward in giving you those links later on. So I'm going to share my screen now and take you through the presentation which we've built from the input from all of the various meetings. Now, I've been agonizing on how to make this exciting, and I haven't really had time to go through and put it all into nice funky graphics and stuff. So it's a pretty list of things that are going on. So I'm relying on my fellow panelists to chip in and tell me and add some flavor to some of these things, because many of you were involved in those events. They will trigger thoughts and they'll trigger ideas as you go through. But we've had a pretty good week. We had over 50 people join us live for the first event, which is pretty, if you were at the NEC last year, trying to get an audience of 50 people other than for the big name main tent events is really hard. We had some big names there, to be fair, but we got 50 people there live, and we know that over 150 others watched the recording of the event in the next 24 hours afterwards. So we know we're actually getting to people, which is really getting to people in a nice way, which is where we are now. So that's really good. So I'll quickly rattle through these, and do interrupt anyone. I can't actually see your screens at the moment, so you'll have to just chip in and say something if you want to contribute. Thank you. Right, so those are the community meetings we had. Each one of them met up, and they did talk about the issues facing the sector, and we did come up with practical actions that they would like to see happen, or they would like us to help facilitate to enable the changes to happen. And I'm going to go really fast here, and I'm going to try not to be too fast because I do tend to speak too quickly as it is. At the first event where we launched, is that someone agreeing there, I think? The first event, we launched the event, and one of the things that came out right at the beginning was it was the feeling that although many of the leaders of our industry, and there are 420,000 organizations in the built environment, many of those leaders have kind of didn't prepare for leadership in the way that a leader of a blue chip or a major organization might have done. They may well have come off the tools, as they say, or worked their way up through the ranks, and they're running what's a sizable business now without having the exposure to the range of people and the training and the understanding of diversity and how to manage workforces and all those sorts of things. And there might be a lack of emotional intelligence and experience. Empathy training was suggested there. Someone suggested there might be a legislative requirement to increase diversity within the workforce. That's quite a controversial topic, and I'm sure people have views on that. And do answer questions if you want to comment on that through the chat. Accountability for the buildings we create, and without wanting to dampen things a bit, there have been some very memorable failings in our sector. Recently, Grenfell being obviously the worst and most horrific one, and there's an obvious lack of accountability from end-to-end delivery on that, and there's something wrong in the sector going for that. And I know lots of people in the built environment, they're very passionate, very enthusiastic, they love what they do and they feel a real passion for it, but we let those things go wrong. So how do we do that? Leadership skills, particularly for smaller organizations, are a big issue. So that's the first things that came up in the first meeting. Then we talked about the BAME, and this was Bola, who helped, I can never remember his surname, but Bola, who helped us with this one. Sogan, thank you very much. Sogan, sorry. And he is particularly passionate about, obviously, Black and minority ethnic people in the industry, and it's not just the progression of them, which is an issue, but the retention as well, because people tend to leave, and we wanted to find out more about why that is the case. How do they get on? Why do they see? He feels, and a lot of them felt there was a kind of a glass ceiling for them. Why is that? We need to know the exact numbers. We need to know the evidence behind all of that stuff, and also create a database of case studies so that others who might be thinking about entering the sector, or who want to actually try and to help things move forward, can actually find relatable case studies, and that needs to be consolidated in some sort of database and some sort of access tool, which is of course what Building People is all about. We have a library of resources of those sorts of things. And the other thing that came across as well, I think someone has said already, there is a business case for having a more diverse workforce. You're trying to serve a diverse society. What is that business case? Does everybody know it? Can we help people in the social value context try and understand that actually it makes good business sense to be recruit from diverse audiences?
Terry, just a suggestion. I've just got some thoughts on the previous slide, and I just wonder it might be worth a pause at the end of each one, just for
okay,
chip in. But I was just thinking that I know from the ex-military, the crowdfunding request from that community is, can building people help by creating one place where they can all upload their a day in the life of films and their case studies, etc. And that's what we're crowdfunding for in Building People. But seeing this also within the BAME one, I can see there's some that real value in that one place where you can access. So I know there's like Land Collective and then on Go Construct. There are various places that have case studies, but it's this whole thing about just fragmentation. Do the panel have any thoughts on this slide to share?
I think Deidre's unmuted herself. Yeah.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I just wanted to add that just based as part of the panel for the BAME discussion, and we were quite keen on moving forward. You know, whilst we do appreciate that there is quite a lot of very good discussion taking place, and of course with recent events with the Black Lives Matter movement, it has gained quite a lot of interest with persons actually discussing the matter. But for many of us, you know, across the board, and certainly our panel felt that we did have a lot of discussions which has taken place over the years, and it is really time for that action to kick in, and time to sort of put measurable foundations in place that we can then build on for the future generations and for persons entering the built environment. So it is that focus on translating the discussions into action, which is very much what we're doing right now with Building People this week.
Yes.
Measurable actions.
Yeah, and that's the you're absolutely right, Deidre. That was the thrust of what the people at that meeting wanted to try and achieve. That's good. Thank you for that, Rebecca. And so obviously that's the same thing that came up in the ex-military community as well. So an area to collate free short courses and build veteran CVs as well, and some of the issues and solutions facing people in the built environment. One that struck with me was, and I don't know if Robert's got any views on this, as a tool that highlights and translates the transferability of skills. Often you find people who've worked in the forces come into the built environment, and we tend to assume, I didn't actually attend this one, but I think this comes up as a theme going through all the communities. People, I think, tend to assume that someone who comes from the ex-military will have been a squaddy or a private or someone in the lower ranks, and actually they come through as well. Obviously, it's senior ranks as well, with all sorts of managerial and logistics and organisational skills, as well as trade skills and things. And a translation for that would be an interesting thought, don't you think, Robert?
The transferable skills element that came out of this one was something that really did pique my attention. And what I would like to say is I agree with everything you say there. I think there is a vast set of skills and deeper competencies that come out of ex-military people. And I think the problem is that there is not a ecosystem in place where this can be set out and highlighted to the world. And I think that's one of the key problems. And I don't think it's just a thing to do with ex-military. I think this is in the construction industry as a whole, that we don't have this sort of ecosystem, and furthermore a digital ecosystem where skills, competencies, all other attributes can be set out and adequately manage supply and demand of competencies, and ultimately supply and demand of people and getting people into places where they need to be and where they want to be.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That might be a good opportunity. We have had a question come in from Debbie, who is saying that a focus just on skills naturally limits diversity rather than all dimensions of competence, so aptitudes, attitudes, interests, etc. And she's asking why we're using the language skills rather than competencies. And absolutely, Debbie, a really valid challenge. I think the issue we've had is that people tend to understand when you say about skills, and competencies is still something that in our experience, we're just not finding the wider audience immediately gets. But yes, slight rattled knuckles taken and appreciated. And no, I know Debbie's made another question, which we'll come back to later on.
Okay. Anjali.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that actually, because maybe we need to broaden our approach. A lot of you may not know, but a lot of the guys that come from like the Eastern European side to actually come and work in the trades are actually ex-military from their countries, because we have a lot of carpenters on our site who were ex-military, but they've just come across kind of just learned a new skill, but the skill that they have with that precision and everything is actually really transferable. We didn't necessarily know when they started working with us, but when we get to know them, they then tell us their true background. So it's actually really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and Debbie's absolutely right too, and I should know better really, because I have worked with Debbie on various things as well, and having a background in sector skills councils, but it's really the whole person you're trying to map, if you like, into an unambiguous statement of what they can contribute to the workplace. And it does range through a whole load of things and use skills or competence for shortcut, as a shortcut really. So, but you're absolutely right. And you've just pointed out there as well, Anjali, is that the person arrives with all of the attributes that you need for someone doing that job. They happen to have picked up carpentry or plastering, whatever skills, but the other things they do and their way of behaving and their commitment to the task at hand is what really makes them attractive. So what we need to do is put more pressure, according to the people in the ex-offenders, is to more pressure on people, on employers, to offer work experience. And I think they mean really sort of not just work experience in the school sense, but experience of in the workplace, trying to do that. And I think that's something that comes up time and time again. And it is ironic that in a sector where we are struggling for skills and good people, that we still have to encourage employers to look and give more opportunities to those who need work. And I think that's probably because the recruitment still in the sector tends to be word of mouth rather than less ambiguous than that. And I know that I've told this story a few times as well. In my local town, if you go to a certain pub on this afternoon from 3:30, you will find all the tradespeople have finished their week's work and they'll be coming along to have a few drinks with their mates they know very well. And that's where you find your plasterers, bricklayers and carpenters for next week, because that's often the way it works. And that isn't it's not a bad way to work, obviously. It's very community oriented, but there are other ways and better ways, particularly in the higher levels of professions and things where we're more geographically spread, to try and improve the recruitment. So enough of me. Right, so this one is about the youth group, youth organisations, youth perspective on the challenges. And I was at this meeting as well. And what we felt was that there needs to be a better idea of what is an offer in terms of supporting employers to engage with education and young people to understand what opportunities there are for schools and colleges to find out who they can work with to improve on that. And we've trying to develop a multidimensional map of the UK so you can click in and say where you are, what you are, how you work. There's an awful lot of enthusiasm to work together among the people who work with young people, because there are something like 250, 300,000 youngsters in every year coming through, and the efforts of even the biggest organisations in the sector to try and reach those people, to try and get them involved in that there is a career there potentially for them in the built environment, only tend to go to a very small number of schools, and we need to improve on that. And Gillian, you have a comment to make there.
Yes, well, I've been very struck recently during this pandemic and the crisis in terms of organisations thinking about, you know, who they can retain and who they have to let go. That there's been a big emphasis on a lot of younger people either not being able to even get jobs in the first place or being let go as part of restructuring programmes. And I think we're forgetting that the generation coming into the workplace now have got a set of skills which we, more mature, let's say, participants, don't have. And we really do ignore that point at our peril, I think. I mentioned the business criticality of this issue earlier, and this is one aspect of it. There are many, but we have a graduate training programme at BRE, and some of the skills in that and competencies, thank you, Debbie, in that group are phenomenal. And there is no way that I would be, while the organisation is still standing, that I would be letting those go. So I think that we need to recognise the skill set, which is what we absolutely need for the future, and really find out more about it so that we can deploy it effectively. And the other aspect, of course, of that generation is their passion to come into this sector in order to play their part in addressing, you know, the huge question of climate change, resources, and biodiversity. And that's a big driver for them to come in, I find.
That's really, really good points, actually. As you say, and I work with young people a lot as well, and the purpose that they want to see from their employment is almost more important than the financial reward for many of them. Obviously not all of them, but there's that. And the fact the built environment represents 40% of carbon emissions really does hit home with them. So they really want to do that. And actually, as you say, they're natives. The world is changing so quickly with technology and the way that we interact with each other online, that they are natives to that environment, whereas you and I, Gillian, are kind of latecomers to it, unfortunately. But yeah, that's absolutely right. Really, very good points there. Thank you for that. The other things that we felt were, so there's more of a no front door, so people know where to go, but also the image of the sector. We talk about, and I started my career in IBM really. I left school determined I wasn't going to work and be a geek, because I was offered the IT sector, go and be a programmer. Didn't want to do that at all. 3 years after leaving, or 1 year after leaving university, actually, I found myself in IBM. And I was working not in the programming sector, but the technology sector, which is one of the sexiest and most attractive sectors, attracting some of the best graduates and young people of all sorts, and people of all sorts in the world today. And the built environment is as sexy and as attractive as the technology sector. Talking about construction is like talking about programming. It's the sharp end, it's the front end, it's where things get done. But it's not something that is necessarily attractive, because it's got a very a legacy image which isn't as attractive to young people today. So we need to try and talk in a different way. And I'm going to have to move on quickly, because I can talk about young people for ages. One of the other things we want to do, though, is work with employers. They need to help us own that agenda. And if you want to find out, the CSTT program is aimed at doing just that. But they need to own the young people agenda, as well as careers and organisations like the CSTT and others pushing it forward. And also we need to get inside the government systems in some way. So we thought we'd go direct to awarding bodies and change the curriculum. Why isn't there a built environment GCSE? There's a business studies one. Why can't there be a built environment studies one? It's as broad a sector, you could do the same sort of thing. So why isn't there one? And while the T levels being developed, we won't get very far with that probably, but we can certainly keep on planting those seeds. So that's I'll move on to that one, because that's one I can get carried away on. Stopcox is a much more practical example of actually something really quite amazing happening. Do you want to tell us a bit about Stopcox, Rebecca, because you were there and you were helping on that one?
I just loved this session. It was just absolutely brilliant, because it's an action. And I think so many of us are just fed up with talk. And I know, Terry, we've all said this before, that we're really, really good at having, an event at which we launch the latest report with the latest statistics that then goes on a shelf, or might even become a PDF and go on a shelf online. And it's seeing Stopcox do this is phenomenal. So they launched the register for tradeswomen to sign up. And it's a not-for-profit, and it's more than just a register, because they're also going to be creating training schools for tradeswomen, or rather for women to become tradeswomen. And there's support within the whole system. And for me, this is how you change the culture of the industry. Is you just make it easier for the people who are there. So there were two tradeswomen on that session, and one of them was in her van, and the other one was just stepping outside of the job. And they were both working that day. When do we see tradeswomen on our screens? It just doesn't happen. So for me, it was an incredibly powerful session. That this is how you change the culture of the industry. You make it easier for more diverse people to do more, to be more visible, to be more effective. So I simply loved that session.
Yes, and they have got the new platform that they've crowdfunded and is launching. It's launched now, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. So that the call is, if you know any tradeswomen, if you can just push the message out and get them to register, and then soon people like me, I'm sitting here knowing that my shower is leaking around the corner, I can pick up the phone and have a tradeswoman come around, which is what I'm going to do.
And there are lots of occasions where customers would prefer a tradeswoman if they knew they existed. So that's something that's worth having in the sector for them. So they're really good, really passionate, and lovely individuals as well. So let's wish them the best of luck on that and see what we can do to try and help that take up. This one was the ex-vendors session. It was the most encouraging one for me. I was quite surprised, to be honest, because I have my own preconceived ideas. And I always think of ex-offenders as being young ne'er-do-wells who get caught out doing whatever it is. And, I've never really come across much, and I had much in my professional life to do with ex-offenders. I was really inspired by the people we had on the panel from the prison service and from Bounce Back. And there's a national body as well. I've forgotten the name now, which is not very good, but you can go back and look at this one. They got a real buzz out of helping people who'd taken a wrong turn and help giving them another chance. And many of these people, I always thought of young males. There are female prisoners as well, and they need the opportunities too. So, and they're also not always young either. They come out of prison, sometimes with trade skills, sometimes they've done programs, qualifications while they've been in there, and there is facilities. There's even one example where there is an off-site construction, a factory being developed in Wales, where they can produce modular homes that can be installed there. So that sort of stuff is already going on. Amazing amount of skills development going on there. And they can arrive with all sorts of skills that are not just the lower levels, but managerial and operational skills as well. So there's a real change there, and the people felt a real passion for giving those candidates a new chance. And the thing that they really worked on, they actually worked very well together already. Obviously, there's a certain number of prisons in the country, and I don't know if they cover them all, but they certainly cover a fair number of them. And the prison governors and the prison associations and the government are really keen to work with those people. What they really need is more employers to actually take these candidates on. And they can even almost train people to meet your requirements, it seems, so they can flex and they can vary the training that is available to the young people as they start, or the prisoners as they start to leave the service, and give them the skills that are needed on the outside. And there's a lot of support as well already in place for the employers as well as the ex-offenders as they leave the prison service. So it's all set up, it's working really well. What they really need is more employers to engage with them. So they need more case studies of ex-offenders succeeding, male and female, different ages and different levels in the industry. Get the industry bodies perhaps to try and champion some of that activity, and create virtual workshops. One of the things that's difficult at the moment with the COVID lockdown is people, I've never been inside a prison, I don't know if you have, but actually getting the employers into the spaces makes them realize actually these are good people. They have taken a wrong turn, something's gone wrong in their lives, but they have prospects, they have opportunities, they have potential, and just trying to get them on there. So we talked about making some sort of virtual, like you have virtual work experience, those sorts of things, have virtual prison visits as well, to see what actually really happens on the inside, literally, of those establishments. So we'll see if we can help doing that kind of activity. The LGBTQ community as well, they're already very well organized, and they already are quite strong networks of people there. But again, they need more visible representation within our community and more role models. The thing that goes through all of the activities we have is others in the industry who are facing the same kinds of issues in terms of diversity really yearn for relatable role models, people who have gone through whatever it is they're going through and can see there is a future for them in that. So and we need to try and get more young people involved in the LGBTQ activities as well, and get them together, because it is about getting individuals to understand they're not alone and not the only person. And actually it's quite it's not probably going to be as bad as you think it might be to talk to your colleagues, or if you're already talking to your colleagues and you're having problems, there are others there who can help you. So there's lots of networking and activities they're looking for as well. So another very passionate group there. I think I've run to the end of my sessions there, so it wasn't too bad. Thank you for your contributions, panel, to do that. So
Terry, it might just be worth me interrupting to say we've got a few comments that are coming in. So maybe just while you're having a quick breather.
I'll stop sharing, yeah.
Absolutely, Gillian, we need to do this fairly transparent and intelligently. So we can actually make decisions about who to keep or borrow related to the work of the organisational projects. Terry, we need to learn from the IT sector. Martin is saying there's so much talking research. Oh, Martin, you echo my words. Not a lot of action is happening. And I'm really pleased you're saying it's good to see something tangible happening. And absolutely, this, we refuse to sit and just talk. We are doing, and we're really looking to everybody to do this with us. Mark is saying, Gillian, you're getting lots of ticks here. Good points by Gillian. New skills and competencies that are embedded in young people are all part of the image point. We need to retain them, make more of the wider range of competencies we need to change the image of the industry. And then the last comment at the moment from Andrea, talking as a young adult, that she's observed it's becoming increasingly difficult to find a job that is career oriented. A lot of people have been made redundant. There's lots of work experience behind them, lots of titles, and many employers choose those ones instead of a young person with less experience. Oh, and we've got a question here, so maybe we could kick off with this question. What do you think could be done to create a balance and help young people find proper jobs? Wow, gosh, that's a toughie.
A balance, I wonder.
Yes, I suppose a balance between young people being made redundant who've got lots of experience and young people coming in with no work experience. And how do we get that balance so we can keep having young people employed and get employed at the same time?
Well, I think I can start off with that, but I will have some help on that one. I think one of the things, Gillian's hit the nail on the head with that, in that we tend to look, and this is why Debbie's intervention telling us off for talking about skills is the right one, is that we just tend to look at, can you do X? And actually people are so much more multifaceted than that, and they can do all different sorts of things, and they bring all different sorts of competencies and attitudes and experience and a wealth of different attributes to the workplace that we don't tend to look at. Even young people, and actually I made a note to myself, because one of the things through the CSTT schools program is we're trying to get more young people aware of the built environment, and I've been struggling to work out, how do you find out if someone says, I'd be interested in surveying, but surveying ranges from quantitative surveying, which is very mathematical, to land surveying, which is much more about almost archaeological, much more about the countryside. So there's all sorts of range of different skills and people in the surveying profession. And how do I do that? And I need to start to think about some of those attributes in a bit more depth. So I should do that. Robert, you've raised your hand to say something.
I think we can also learn from some of the work that the Association for Consultancy and Engineering are doing in the space for young people, their Future of Consultancy campaign. A couple of things I might want to highlight there. Let's maybe think about reverse mentoring. Typically, young people come into a job, and it's often a criticism from young professionals that they end up doing exactly the same kind of things that have always been done by their older peers, and so things don't change. Let's maybe think about listening to the young people and actually getting the young people to mentor us, the older people. That's certainly one thing that we can do, and has actually been promoted. Also talking about young people, Project Utopia, they're a very new development company. Joe Daniels is their figurehead, and quite a character. He's doing some fantastic things, you know, revolutionizing design, putting it through gaming engines. I'm not a gamer, I don't understand it at all. But if you've got a Revit, and if you've got a Revit model and you put it through gaming, you've got great visualizations. That surely is a great hook for young people, and part of my sort of passion about sort of promoting innovation, that we do things differently in construction, you know, and, you know, somebody who might be attracted into gaming, well, let's have them in construction. Why not?
Yes. Anjali, you can say something there?
Yeah, I was going to say about the balance thing. I think, especially from my point of view, because we are subcontractors, we do a lot of the reverse mentoring kind of anyways, because the guys on site have that knowledge that I kind of need to be able to learn the trade. But then with everything going on with the IT and stuff, I'm able to help them with all the IT side of things. In terms of getting the balance, though, I think we need to think of the industry as a whole. We're trying to retain people, and we're trying to encourage more people to join the industry. And then if we're not going to create those roles, then we're just going to lose all of that work we've done to kind of build momentum to get people in, and they will just be lost, or they'll just go to other industries. So a lot of the work we're going to do will then just become undone. I think we need to think about that.
Gillian, you can just add something there.
Yeah, well, I was going to go back to the point that I've made a couple of times. This is absolutely a business critical issue for any business leader. We keep talking about needing diversity of thinking and competencies. We know there's a shortage of skills and competencies, and the right quantities and types of talent in this industry. And we also know there's a technology revolution going on outside our businesses. This is about investing in the future of our businesses and about being successful. There are loads of pieces of research which show that businesses with diverse leadership are more successful. And it's very apparent to me why that is, because if you bring in a wider group of people with different attributes and different contributions, in a world which is so challenging and complex and has so many new different components in it, compared to when we started our careers, it seems to me a no-brainer, you're bound to be more successful. So why more business leaders aren't seeing this as a real burning platform, I don't know. I think it is crucial, and unless business leaders recognise that, they're not going to make that investment in new talent and think laterally about where that talent is going to come from. Those who do will be the winners in the competitive race that we're in.
Deidre, you
Yes, I just wanted to add my voice to the panel that it really does highlight the fact that in addition to highlighting competencies or promoting competencies within the industry, we really do have to try to make that link between individuals, the soft skills and those competencies, which translate into actions and deliverables. There isn't a way to measure. We find it very difficult to measure human input and human impact because we are quite rigid as an industry in terms of how we look at value and how we measure value and value add. So it is that the onus it has to be on looking inwards and looking at an individual and what they bring in order to translate into value and it should translate into something that is a bit longer lasting. And it goes across the board because, I mean, to Robert's point in terms of attracting young persons into the industry, you cannot speak technical jargon to young persons. And in my experience as a STEM ambassador, speaking to young persons and going into the schools, you have to find something which will initially, grasp their attention and make them want to know a bit more. Because at the moment, believe it or not, the industry, the built environment is still viewed very much in terms of just the trades. And a young person will still say to you that I don't necessarily want to be a carpenter or a mason right now, not realizing that the trades are one of many, different disciplines within the industry. And also that they interrelate. They are transferable skills which go across the board. And these are skills that you can build on and specialize into so many different areas. So my message has really been about the options that we offer as the built environment, just the various options, because even with technology, the application of technology within the built environment is enormous and is unending.
Absolutely. Really good point. Anjali as well. Rebecca, you got another set of questions?
Yes, I was going to say, such a valid point. And there's actually been a question from Kelly, which is I think one that I've been wanting to flag up as well. So Kelly's agreeing, many people know what's needed. We talk about it a lot, but how do we make change happen? So I'm just going to slightly elaborate on that because Kelly says, or she adds, some people see culture change as putting them at a disadvantage. So I think that's an interesting one to explore. But I'd also like to just pick up on not just how we make change happen, but who. Who is it? Where does the responsibility for this sit? Who's got the burning to answer there? The cultural change, putting people at a disadvantage, and who? Two very different questions.
Gillian?
Actually, I was gonna respond to the other point about who is responsible.
Okay.
I'll leave others to comment on that first because I'd like to come in on the second part.
Okay. So my question was going to be, actually, because we are action oriented in this session, we really want to make sure that we've got the action plans from each of our communities. And I was interested to hear from the panel what your primary action would be. So to try and overcome this thing, and to give you, just while you're thinking about that, to follow on from Deidre's point as well, is that the CSTT pilot we did with young people, as only 75 youngsters did it, and we did a poll of them, and how many of them would think about a career in the construction of the built environment at the beginning of the session. We did with 6 lessons with them based on GCSE geography. 6% said they wanted to go into construction. And I've got a vox pop in my home. I've got 2 daughters who are 15 and 13, so they're right at the target age. They said, no way am I going to go and work out like the guys who built our extension last year when it was snowing and wet and they were digging holes and banging tiles and roofs and stuff. That's what people think. That's what the youngsters think. By the time we finished the intervention, which was very light touch, it was only 6 lessons of geography with a link to the built environment built into it. 60% said they would consider a career in the built environment because they'd understood what it was and the range of opportunity. And that's just a start, but it's a very small group. But there's a real yearning out there for careers that will change the world, and that's what you do in the built environment. So that people are quite inspired by it. So have you, Anjali, you've unmuted yourself, so you must have an answer to my question. What's the golden bullet?
Yes, so I think the single action would just be education. I think we have so many people in the industry. I come from a subcontractor point of view, like I've said, and I fall in 90% plus of our industry. if I wasn't doing my research and I wasn't being proactive, I probably wouldn't know about all of this stuff going on. I probably wouldn't even know about building people. Why? Because when you're a smaller company, you kind of just do what you need to do to kind of get by. You're not worried about everything else. And I think a lot of people are just that it's not affecting them yet. So they've not taken it upon themselves. So I think we need to really educate people to then help us outwardly to help educate parents and cultures. I mean, it was seen as really unconventional for me to join this industry. I can tell so many people what I do and they'll say, wow, that's so amazing. But will they ever send their child into this? Probably not. So it's about educating them about what it is that I do, but not the way I see it is always exterior. It always drives that rather than the interior. We have so many people out there that can add so much value to our industry because they have that knowledge, the expertise, but our industry is all about image, whereas it should be about what you can do up here. So that's why I want to add education.
Good, thank you. Gillian, you're going to chip in now with your...
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, just to pick up on that question and your challenge to us, Terry, I think hopefully combine it. This idea that individuals will be disadvantaged by the change that we want to see. And I mean, my response to that is always, well, you know, a lot of people have been disadvantaged for centuries by the balance that we've had. So I think it's about time we redress that. But I do go back to this point about the need for more diverse leadership. And this is my point to who is responsible. Leadership of businesses. Yes, we can all play our part, but let's face it, people who are making decisions are the ones at the top of businesses, are the ones who can make the most impact. And I think that the point is that, unfortunately, business leaders have to face the fact that the current model is not fit for purpose for the reason that we've been talking about in this session. And therefore, it's a matter of obligation and responsibility for business leaders to address this. It's not an optional extra. I saw a piece of research recently which said that, which was asking white male business leaders whether they were committed to EDI and what they were doing about it. And they were committed, but a lot said they weren't doing anything about it. And the top reason given was they were too busy. Well, how can you be too busy to address a critical issue about the future success of your business? And I think we all as business leaders, and I include myself in this, we have to find ways of shifting from old models with people who are, you know, veterans and we know that they're good, to thinking about team. And this is my answer to your point, Terry. Let's get away from best person for the job and start thinking that we have a responsibility as business leaders to create the best team for the job. That means diverse teams. So I think that, you know, we really need to take on board the facts of the matter about what creates success and actually implement it by thinking differently about how to form our own teams and then cascade that throughout our businesses, because we won't have the role models if we don't do that.
I think I absolutely agree with you on that totally. And I think one of the things I like to draw analogies, and we all talk a lot about the technological changes that the society is facing and the built environment is facing. And let's face it, a lot of built environment construction companies, they go as far as using texts if they're lucky. And some of them, I was trying to talk to some, one of my other businesses, I was talking to some people running small sites building early years centres and things, so not massive building sites, but, you know, sizable developments. And they said, well, you know, we can't get our guys to use this. We're lucky if we can get them to answer the phone or send a text. So, you know, that's part of the workforce, but it's also part of the requirement and the use in the business to actually for technology. Just as much as technology is changing, the requirements and skills and of leadership are changing as well. And I've had experience myself of leadership in the sector, which is out of the 1970s and 1980s, and it needs to be leadership that is of today, with a different set of requirements, with value being a driving principle, as Deidre, I think, said earlier on. And not just that, but empathy came out through through a number of the working groups that we had, the different community groups, and understanding, as you say, teams, and developing diverse thoughts, because we are serving our diverse society, and this is the workforce needs to represent the society we're serving. because that's what we do really. So I think absolutely right. I think the changing in management requirements is something that is rapidly changing as much as technology is driving change as well. But we don't tend to think of it that way. But over to you, Robert. You've unmuted yourself, so you have a...
Yeah, I want to pick up some of the threads that people have been talking about, Deidre, on value and so on and so forth. And in answer to your question, Terry, if I was boss of the built environment, what single action? My chip in on that is basically, this is targeted at everybody, but especially at leadership, to shine a light on and critically examine what you value. And I think everyone needs to kind of reflect on that question.
Yes, thank you very much.
What is it that we actually value? Let's bring that into the light. Let's make that explicit. And I think that can be a very powerful thing. I'm standing in a kind of very nice position in that I'm kind of halfway between technology and people. So I've got in my current role, I kind of have the privilege of kind of bringing the two together, you know, looking at how innovation can change culture. And obviously, you know, it's got to be by people. Innovation alone can't do it. I listened to some sessions earlier in the week, Sam Stacey on Monday, who's ultimately my boss. You know, innovation is necessary, but in itself not sufficient. You need the people, and you need people to think about what their values are.
So I thank you very much for that, Robert. So I think we've all agreed really it's about the people, and it's about the role models, and it's the management and leadership and how it's all pulled together really. So the $50 million question, we've only got 5 minutes left, is how do we make that happen? Because I remember there is, to me, having come from other sectors and look at other sectors, there isn't a leader in the construction and built environment sector. And if you go to the retail sector, there are 5 or 6 big supermarkets. You get them all to come in and you tell them what you need to do and you agree with them what needs to be done. And suddenly 80% of the workforce are being influenced. You get the top 5 or 6 equivalent construction main contractors to come in. If you're lucky, if you're getting more than 100,000 of the 3.2 million employees represented. I know they have influence over their supply chains, but only at arm's length. So how do you make change happen? Who should be the leaders? And if anyone can answer that question, I'd be absolutely delighted, because I'm trying to find that leadership. And I think it comes back to us, the panelists and those people listening. But we need also to get more of a voice, I think, to challenge as Gillian said, the managers and leaders, the decision makers in our industry. And I think when we talked at the BAME section, I think there was an emphasis on procurement as well, getting the customers to try and actually ask for more diverse workforces and stop the tendency of our industry to turn a requirement into a tick box, but actually make it change and make it deliver on the shop floor. So I think we're kind of coming to an end now. I wasn't meant to have the last word. So if anyone has got any comments they'd like to make at the last bit,
just to add on that, Terry, yes, I do. I wanted to pick up on the point which you made on during Wednesday's presentation on the bottom-up approach and the fact that there needs to be a change in the approach to culture change in general. So we really do have quite a bit of a fighting chance with the bottom-up approach, because there are so many groups who are working in various aspects of the industry, just behind the scenes, and we are trying to sort of bring this all into one sphere, so that we are speaking a sort of a common language towards a common goal. So it is really about tackling those various groups. I mean, just from a personal perspective, women in construction, for example, is doing quite a lot with regards to advancing the role of women within the built environment. And they're doing that independently, I would imagine, from other groups who are working with the LGBTQ community, with young persons. Quite a lot of work being done in the background by various organizations to work with young persons and attract them to the industry. And I think what is quite key as well within this sphere is just the fact that it's great to attract persons, but we also have to focus on retention as well. And this is sort of the next step, and it would only work if we work collectively on that common goal.
And you've just led me straight into the last point, I think, because we have to wrap up now. Thank you very much for that, Deidre. And that building people is kind of the antidote to the status quo. We have, I was looking back, and actually there are reports coming out every 5 years or so from some leader of the industry appointed by government to say what's wrong with the sector and how can we make it go back. Anyone like to guess when the first one I found was? Have a guess? Oh, you're muted anyway, but the first
1800s.
Almost 1935. There actually are some from the 1800s, but 1935 was the first one of those reports, and you can tell how old someone is whether they remember Latham or Egan or Mark Farmer's reports, and they're all really valid reports. They say really positive, challenging things to the industry, and we've tried since then to do top-down change, and we've got nowhere because there's still more reports needed. So what we need to do, and what Building People is about, giving a voice to those small groups, those individuals. And I remember at the CIOB, I met lots of small managing leaders of small development companies, and they were all passionate about what the industry did. They were so proud of what they achieved. And if only we could bottle that enthusiasm and bring it together and get the groundswell of change. That's what Building People is all about, joining those dots and getting that change there. So I think all that's left for me to say now is to thank our panelists very much. It's been really, I hope it's been a good conversation for you guys. It's been good for me. So thank you very much for that. And I think hand over to our sponsor, Rebecca, for the last word and Building People.
I'm going to take a very quick 20 seconds to say, Chris asked a question about construction implementing a national construction outreach program that targets school children. So Chris, please contact Terry, because I know Terry is desperate to do this. If you haven't got his details, they'll be in the chat box shortly, because we have Molly in the background helping out with this. Otherwise, we're just, you'll find us, because we're all over Construction Week this week. So I will just end by saying a huge thank you to the audience for joining us. It's been an amazing 9 events, and I feel so proud. This time last year we were doing this at the NEC, and the year before we were talking about what we could do. And I can promise that none of this is a talking shop. This is all about actions, and what we're doing with Building People is harnessing all this passion and activity so we can join the dots. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to the panel, Anjali, Deidre, and Robert and Gillian, and of course Terry.